Good morning. Sorry that we're starting a little bit late. I was meeting with council members and briefing them on the situation. So I'm pleased to announce that in discussions that I've had with the Washington Commanders with regard to the proposal for a new stadium, that we've reached an agreement on general terms, primarily with regard to the finances. I'm happy to go through all that. I think that Lindsay had circulated materials earlier to members of the press, so you probably have already seen roughly what the situation is. The commanders, as you know, have thought it's really important that the council get to a vote by the end of the month. Actually, the mayor had negotiated, as I think you know, July 15th, which simply wasn't going to work because we had the budget. And in fact, we're still not done with the budget. We'll be voting on Monday. The commanders' sense of our need for urgency actually worked to our benefit because what we said to the commanders was that if you really want an earlier date, then we want to see some changes that make the deal better for citizens of the district. And that's the material that has been released, and I'm pleased to say that with regard to revenues, that we will see significant revenues coming to the district's general fund, and some other changes that are of benefit to the city. So just as a reminder, when the deal was announced between the mayor and the commanders, what was proposed was a $500 million subsidy for construction toward the construction of the stadium, plus another $356 million for the construction of 2 parking garages. I want to emphasize that those dollars, which are unchanged in where we are today, are the upside of what the district provides. It's the downside, upside, all sides. That is to say that the city's not on the hook if the cost for the stadium is greater than what the team thinks, and the city's not on the hook if the cost of constructing the garages is greater than what we're providing. So that's an $856 million subsidy. In addition, what was worked out between the mayor and the team was that there would be a significant number of tax abatements or tax avoidance. When I say avoidance, I'm talking about no parking tax, which is 18%, and then tax abatements on sales taxes, the different sales taxes, which is to say that the city would be borrowing and providing $856 million, and there would be no revenue stream to the general fund in return. What we have negotiated is quite different. Depending upon whose numbers you look at, it's I want to say, a benefit to the city in terms of revenues that could be as much as $949 million. I'll repeat, that's $949 million over the term of the lease. So there will be parking taxes that will go to the general fund. The sales taxes on general merchandise will go to the general fund. Sales taxes on food and beverage will go to the general fund. The team will retain the ticket taxes, and the ticket taxes will go into the maintenance fund that they want, and that's important for maintaining the facility in a state of good repair for the life of the lease. So that's with regard to the revenues. Where we are, and this was less negotiated with the commanders and more what the council's been able to do with the mayor's proposal, is we've made some internal changes. When I say internal, I mean with regard to how we're structuring the financing, so that we will not be capitalizing interest for 2 years, which had been in the mayor's proposal, and that should save district taxpayers approximately $55 million. And in addition, we will be redirecting some of the revenue from what's going to be called the sports facilities fee, currently known as the ballpark fee. The mayor proposed continuing that. we're keeping that as she proposed, but redirecting roughly $600 million over the lease term to a transportation improvement fund to deal with concerns that we have about the capacity of the existing Metro Rail station and the possibility that a new additional station would have to be built. So that's about $600 million we're setting aside for transportation improvements. And the restructuring of the financing will save taxpayers about $55 million. In addition, the term sheet that the mayor had negotiated with the commanders spoke of a community benefits fund or community benefits agreement, but without a dollar amount affixed to that. And the commanders have agreed that they will provide $50 million, $50 million for a community benefits agreement. And those uses will be, for example, youth sports linked to education. I think some subsidy the team will provide to attract a grocery store, some job training, benefits, community benefits such as that. So when I talk about as much as $949 million, I'm talking about the, let me see, I'm going to have to do some math here, roughly $874 million. This is using some figures from the team in revenues, tax revenues, as well as the community benefits fund, as well as the $55 million we're saving and how we're restructuring the financing on the part of the district. There's more to come, and what I mean by that is that the council, I've agreed to, that the council will meet on August 1st to adopt the legislation. That will be our first vote on it, and we're going to work off the bill that I introduced a couple of weeks ago, which I believe is Bill 26-288. There will have to be substantial revisions to that legislation. So if you look up that bill now, it will reflect what the mayor had submitted, but not yet the changes. All that is going to have to be drafted over the next several days, and we will make available as soon as possible. Subsequent to that, there will be a negotiation between the Deputy Mayor for Planning and Economic Development, DEMPED, and the team to work out the details of what's called a Development Financing Agreement, or DFA, which will go into more detail. So do not expect a fine-grained level of detail in the legislation. A lot of that will be in the DFA and then subsequently in the leases that will be negotiated. So there's still a lot that has to be worked out in terms of legal documents, but the basic framework, we know what that is, and that will be before the council on August 1st for a first vote. Somebody's going to probably ask when the second vote is. That's scheduled right now for September 17th. Let me just see if there's anything else I want to add. I appreciate that several colleagues are here. Councilmember McDuffie, who joined me in the negotiations, Councilmember Pinto, and Councilmember Felder. And I'm confident that we will have the necessary votes on August 1st. So let me see if there are any questions. And if you have questions for any of my colleagues, please say so. Yes, sir.
Councilmember Tom Fitzgerald from Channel 5. Good morning. The mayor yesterday said, sorry about that. The mayor yesterday had said that she understands that the council needs to do its due diligence, however, said she was not happy with what she described as delay for delay's sake. Is your agreement that you're announcing this morning significantly different than what the mayor worked out with the team, or was this delay for delay's sake?
Oh, I think $950 million is significantly different. I mean, I could point to some other aspects of this because I didn't mention this, there will be how do I want to put this, some clawback if development timelines aren't met. I didn't mention that. I think the Transportation Improvement Fund is significantly an improvement. I think the restructuring of the financing by the council is an important improvement. You know, when I talk about $950 million as the upside of what the revenue benefit will be to the city. The $55 million in nearer-term savings on the financing looks small, but I'll tell you, if I had $55 million to offer anybody here, I think everybody would raise their hands and say that was significant. So I think, the important thing is that August 1st, we will have a vote.
If I could just follow, you had told us that the reason that the stadium deal was taken out of the budget was you needed more time and it did not fit in with your calendar, having received the budget late. August 1st and September 17th are kind of in the same wheelhouse. Did it make that much of a difference?
Totally. I'm sorry, but just totally did. There's no way that we could have negotiated this or legislated this by July 14th, which was our first vote, or even by July 28th, which was our second vote. So I think we've gotten past the time thing. Yes, sir.
Chairman, and I know you might got past the time thing, but I'm only asking because I think there was a perception that we were waiting on the 2 additional studies that have not been released yet, and then the hearings. And I think yesterday, speaking to people, they were under the assumption that these hearings, their points of view and their input would be taken into consideration before a deal. And then, it's announced today that we have a tentative deal. I think they were a little bit kind of taken aback. What do you tell those people that 400 plus people have signed up, they're going to be ready to testify, and they're like, well, it seems like it's a done deal, and now I'm just waiting to, say something to the council when they've already kind of had an agreement?
Well, I think it's important that we still hear from the public. I expect that a lot of the testimony is going to be very simple. We think it's great the commanders are coming back, and we want you to vote yes. I think we're going to hear a lot of that, and I think we will also hear from some folks that they think that any kind of subsidy is unacceptable to them. It's important that folks have the opportunity to express those views. Where we are is, I think, much more nuanced and much more beneficial to this city. With regard to the reports, so the report by Robert Bob is available on the council's website. The economic impact analysis, which was done by the council's budget office, I believe will be posted later today. And the tax abatement financial analysis, we're expecting this week, although this week is, I'm told it's being issued today. So bingo, the reports are here.
And the second one.
And I'll note the reports are here after July 15th.
And second one, just on the changes to the taxes, including parking. A lot of people saying that this is going to fall on fans now, the modifications. Your response to and coming also from the executive's office, that this might incur on higher prices for parking for fans?
Absolutely not. Now, I don't really want to speak to what the economics are around ticket prices, but there would have been, will have been. There's never been any thought that there wouldn't be a sales tax on food and beverage. We're not changing that. It's just who gets it. Or a sales tax on general merchandise. Always would have been, will be. We're not changing that. We're not increasing that. The parking tax is pretty standard. And the ticket tax, which the city is not getting, the team will have for maintenance of the stadium, that's not new and different. So if you look at the Nationals ballpark, 10.25% ticket tax. Look at the Monumental Sports, 10.25% ticket tax. Look at the Commanders Stadium at RFK, 2.25% ticket tax. So we're not contemplating, there's nothing in here that would put pressure on higher fees or ticket prices for fans. Next. Sam.
I have 2 questions, one for you, Chairman, and one for Councilmember Felder. So just clarifying, if you can clarify for us the turning point in the negotiations, like at what point did the commanders at what point did they feel comfortable going the extra mile as far as ceding the tax revenue? Was it like last week? Was it 2 weeks? Was it before July 15th? If you can just...
Well, I'm not going to get too much into the negotiations. I have said consistently, and it's been true, the commanders have been very positive, constructive in our negotiations. I have no complaint. We asked for information. They shared it quickly. Shared it quickly. I would say that it's in the last 10 days that discussions came into focus. And actually, if you think about it, 10 days ago is right after our first vote on the budget, when we were able to devote more time to this. And you had a question for Councilmember Felder?
I did. So that $50 million, how does that in any way affect your vision for the community benefits agreement? Because, you know, data was gathered from community meetings, and at that time there wasn't a figure, but now that there's a tangible figure, how does that look as far as your intended or desired implementation?
Good question. Based on the information that we gathered within the community benefits agreement, it was pretty consistent. We heard that neighbors wanted to see more opportunities around jobs, workforce development, opportunities for small and local businesses, the need to tackle transportation issues, environmental issues. The themes have been really consistent. To answer your question specifically, now that we have a dollar figure, that just allows us to think about how we want to disperse the resources adequately across the ward.
Any priorities out of like that? I know it was a long document, but anything that you would, if you could prioritize, like your top two?
Creating opportunities for small and local businesses, more jobs, workforce development opportunities. Those are the things that come top of mind.
Yeah. I appreciate the question and appreciate all the work that Councilmember Felder has been doing, but I also, it makes me think about an earlier question about the community meetings and the hearings. The hearings next week are extraordinarily important, and we look forward to hearing from everybody who signed up to testify. But it wasn't the first, this isn't the first opportunity for folks to weigh in on this process. We have gotten a number of emails, phone calls, outreach from social media, from residents across the District of Columbia, both raising concerns and urging us to act. And so I wanted to mention that because I've been a part of a number of meetings that have taken place in the community, hearing from residents across the district, hearing from residents in Ward 7, along with Councilmember Felder, Deputy Mayor for Economic Development, Nina Albert. In some cases, I've been in meetings with the mayor to hear directly about what people would like to see and what they don't want to see. And so the next week's hearings are an extraordinarily important process in the council's business, but it is not the first opportunity that we've had to hear directly from residents about what they'd like to see, like a robust community benefits agreement, which is why you see the number that's associated there. And in terms of some of the things that people have prioritized, they love football, they love cheering for the Commanders, they want to see another winning season. Perhaps they want to see us go to the NFC Championship again, maybe a Super Bowl, but they also want to see youth engage in a way that they haven't before, right? They want to see youth playing football, but perhaps they want to see the girls playing flag football. They want to see youth playing sports, but they want to see youth being educated about the business of sports. And those are some of the things that we have heard from residents that are reflected in the conversations that we've had with the team, that they're excited about making sure that they incorporate in the work that they're doing, and also the community benefits that accrue across the District of Columbia.
Thanks, Martin.
Let's start on, well, what you said in your in the press release. You referenced the fact that there was a lot of outside pressure. I mean, members of Congress, the president, the mayor has kind of consistently been pestering you guys about moving on this as quickly as humanly possible. But up until a few weeks ago, you were somewhat resistant, I'd say defiant to any of that pressure, saying, listen, we need our time, we need to scrutinize the deal. You were saying you were going to wait till September. What was it exactly that changed your thinking on that? Was it a specific thing that someone said? Was it James Comer? Was it the president? Like, just walk us through how you went from September all the way to August 1st in a span of a couple weeks.
I'm not sure how much I want to get into all the negotiations. I think also that sometimes these things are more intuitive than they are something that explicitly and precisely can be pointed to. It was very important to the team that the council vote this month. Next Friday is, in a sense, this month. And they were willing to improve the deal, I think substantially, in return for that earlier vote on our part. I can assure you that I pressed and pressed for different dates and later dates, and came to the conclusion that the benefit from later time would have been less of a benefit in terms of where we are.
All right, and then just quickly to what was one component that is not addressed in the changes you made, but was in the Bob report, was concerns about cost overruns. I mean, also knowing the fact that, and he also mentioned environmental concerns about once you start digging, once the city starts digging on this horizontal construction, they don't really know what they're going to be finding. So cost overruns, potentially likely. Are there any protections at all for the cost overruns, or is the city just going to eat anything above that $500 million just for the site preparation?
I think it's accurate to say that any cost overruns are the responsibility of the team.
But is that written down somewhere?
Well, I think you'll see it at the moment in the term sheet. It probably will be in the legislation, which, as I have said already, is not in, it's not really in draft form yet.
But they'll clarify horizontal and vertical, because they could say, well, listen, we said cost overruns on the stadium, not on preparing the land for the
Yeah.
stadium.
I
Thank
think
you.
we have it covered.
Right.
Thank you. Yes.
Thank you. Felicia Ashley, ABC 7. The Office of the Chief Financial Officer just released their letter that they sent to you all as well as the mayor. And they said that the tax exemptions proposed in the bill are not financially necessary for the team to continue to operate as a business entity. And that based on the impact and the stadium and parking, essentially they didn't need all the tax exemptions. What is your take on that, and was that ever reevaluated in the updates of the financing proposed?
The conclusion, it's called a TAFA, Tax Abatement Financial Analysis.
Right.
The conclusion of the TAFA is not a surprise. Stadiums are typically built by very wealthy entities, and there's a lot of money involved in it. And if the analysis, which is the TAFA analysis, but for the abatements, the stadium will not be built. I think it's clear that financially, that makes sense. So it's not a surprise. On the other hand, I would say that what is before us is about incentives, an incentive to have a football stadium at the RFK site where there's been a football stadium for decades, and to have the Commanders in the district, which I think it's pretty clear a whole lot of people really want. So those are benefits from the incentives. And then I would add that some of the analysis is looking at the abatements as proposed by the mayor. But as I noted, the abatement on parking taxes is eliminated. The abatement on the sales taxes on general merchandise is eliminated. The abatement on the sales tax on food and beverages is eliminated. I would argue that the tax on tickets that the team will get for maintenance is completely legitimate. I don't look at that as an abatement. I mean, this is just my view. I look at that as ensuring that there are the resources to ensure that the stadium is maintained in a state of good repair. You know, right now we're going through with the Washington Nationals that stadium, which is 20 years old, 18 years old, I think it's 18 years old, needs hundreds of millions of dollars to be refurbished so that it continues to be bright and shiny and state of the art. And so we're having to come up with, the city is right now coming up with financing to do that. This maintenance fund will be over time, a significant resource. So much of the abatements that are subject of the analysis, we've eliminated. But what's left, not a surprise.
And just a second question, just for the aspect of transparency, because the vote is 2 days after those public hearings. Realistically, if there are hundreds of people signed up for these hearings, obviously, if there is a large concern consistently brought up that maybe wasn't included in this update, is there time or even realistic space to add an additional change? Or right now with the updates, is it essentially signed, sealed, almost delivered with this deal?
I think it depends on what, excuse me, it depends on what the testimony is, but I'm not expecting a lot of surprises from the testimony. I think it's important to hear what folks have to say. I think it's important to give folks an opportunity to speak out, to speak their mind. But I think that in terms of the financial structure, I'm not sure we're going to get a lot of testimony that's on point with regard to that. So I'm trying to not minimize the importance of the hearings. I think they're very important. And at the same time, I think that we're at a place where we can go forward. And I would add as well, this announcement today, which I think at least some of you will report, that this announcement today actually gives the public something more up-to-date to comment on, and there's a value there. Do you want to add anything on that?
Yes. Thank you. I just want to reiterate this point that the public hearing on Tuesday is not the first or the last time we'll be hearing from the public on this deal that is important to residents from across the city. I think this deal came up at my first debate in 2020. This has been something that has been talked about for years and years, and particularly from some of the skeptics that I've heard from community meetings in all 8 wards, a lot of their input has been addressed. So I heard from some skeptics or opponents to the deal of, wait a minute, is there going to be opportunity for housing? That's why there's 6,000 new units of housing as part of this deal. We've heard from families, there's concern about not having access to the fields at RFK. That's why it's included in this deal, to make sure that those fields are open to families. We've heard from skeptics, wait a minute, we should have more opportunity for revenue generation from parking and sales tax to the district taxpayer benefits. That's why that's included. And so I want to make sure people in the public know they have absolutely been a part of this process for the 5 years I've been on the council, and for some of my colleagues for longer, or for the entire time that we've been here. And so that input has been baked in, and we're appreciative for that input, because I think it ultimately makes this a much stronger deal that I'm excited to vote on next Friday.
I'll note as well, we had a hearing on the Mayor's Budget Support Act, which included this on June 18th with a couple hundred witnesses. Next in the lineup.
Good morning, Ben Peters, the Washington Business Journal. Chairman, your statement this morning put out detailed $779 million in savings for the district, but up on the dais here, you were mentioning a $950 million
Yes.
number. Can you explain where the discrepancy there is?
Yeah, so, there are different ways of projecting or estimating what the revenues are. And I think the sheet that you got, I know
Yeah.
the sheet that I have, notes that the difference is that the team estimates the parking revenues will be about $170 million more than our numbers. We're being a little bit more conservative. And that's why the way I characterized it when I first mentioned it was that the benefit of the revenues to the district could be as much as $949 million.
Got it.
And that, as much as 949 is the 674 million we calculate from the different the parking revenues and taxes, plus 170 million for the higher figure that the team estimates, plus the $50 million community benefits fund, plus the $55 million in savings to taxpayers from restructuring the financing.
Okay. And with that, what is now the
But
total?
let me just say, I think $950 million, I know 949, is a pretty cool figure.
It certainly is bigger than the one you put in this morning. So under the new deal, what is DC's total subsidy toward this project? The number before was 1.1 million. Are we now subtracting 950 from that?
I'm not sure how you got to 1.1, but the
I'm sorry,
subsidy
1.1
is
billion.
$500 million toward the construction of the stadium. Some people say the horizontal. 181 million for a garage, $175 million for a second garage.
And
202 million, which is not going to the team. It's for infrastructure like roads on the campus, so it's more than just the stadium. I guess that's maybe how you get to a little over $1 billion. And then, as I said, I think at the outset, if you added up the benefits, which include, for instance, all the tax abatements, well, it was much higher, and we've reduced it substantially.
So can you give a total number that DC is going to be subsidizing
You're
toward
just
this?
going to have to replay the tape and add it up yourself.
All right, thank you.
Jenny.
I have a couple of numbers questions and then like a bigger picture one. So on the ballpark fee / sports facilities fee, under the initial terms, the $500 million for stadium infrastructure from the city was financed through that fee. Then you say today that there's now $600 million from the ballpark fee that is going towards transportation improvements. Can you explain, like, is the $500 million for the stadium infrastructure still coming from the ballpark fee? And then if so, where does the $600 million come from, if that makes sense?
Well, the ballpark fee brings in a fair amount of money, and the ballpark fee is being restructured once the Nationals ballpark bonds are paid off. And in fact, the first year of the RFK, this deal, the financing is to pay off the baseball bonds. It brings in a fair amount. The fee is going to be renamed. Instead of the ballpark fee, it'll be the sports facility fee. And it brings in enough money to support the borrowing for the $500 million. And there's still additional revenues, which we're going to be setting aside for transportation.
Okay, so you're just saying that the mayor's deal didn't contemplate the additional revenues that would be coming in from the ballpark fee, or does this just extend the fee on businesses for longer?
Oh, if you really want to get into it. So what the mayor had contemplated was that all of the sports facility fee would just go into a sports fee fund without any definition of how it would be used. And if you look at the current budget that we have before us, you can see that these funds get used for all kinds of things. So what we're saying is that besides supporting the bonds, the $500 million, that we're going to be siphoning off roughly $20 million a year into a transportation fund, and that transportation fund can be used for, if we need borrowing, to build a new station, which would not be specifically for the stadium. Maybe I need to say a little bit more about that. So we're pretty sure that the existing metro station at Stadium Armory is going to have some expansion of capacity. I can't tell you the exact number of escalators, but it's not enough to handle a football stadium. So there's going to need to be expansion. I'm not sure how much that's going to cost. It'll be in the millions. But there's some speculation that when the entire campus is built out with, I think it's 6,000 units, residential units, 11,000 maybe residents, plus retail, plus all kinds of things, that larger development is going to require or warrant another station. We don't know. So let's just set some money aside for that. And over the period of the lease, it's $500 million. Maybe it needs to be more. Some of the sports facility fee will go into the general fund, and that can be redirected to additional for transportation.
Gotcha. Thank you.
That's it on the numbers questions?
One more.
Oh, man.
So the press release said that there will be penalties in the form of rent payments if the commanders, as the master developer, don't deliver certain housing and retail on time. What is the deadline, and then how much would the rent penalty be?
The honest answer is that I haven't looked at the latest language on that from the team. I think the deadline is in the early 2040s, and I don't know what I have on the sheet. I think what it is we are accelerating the rent payments. So the term sheet said that rent would begin to be paid on the mixed-use parcels in year 28, and that would happen earlier. So that would be the penalty. I have to say, the goal here is not a penalty. The goal here is that we want the development as quickly as possible, and the team has said persuasively, I think, that they want the development to happen as quickly as possible. They're going to get some money out of the development, so they'd like to see the retail and the office and the hotel and the residential built.
And now my question that's more about you. I mean, you were so vocal for a long time in my memory that you were skeptical of using public funds to finance a football stadium. You said that at the outset of this process. So I guess I'm wondering how you were approaching these negotiations with the team and how you feel now. Like, was this about you setting aside your personal feelings about a football stadium to move forward a deal that you knew like a majority of the council wanted? did something about your personal view change in this process to make you feel like, oh, you think now this football stadium deal is good for the city or better than a different kind of development?
I would say the former. I've said this before. My assessment from the beginning is that a majority of the council members have wanted to get to yes, which is, I have to say, is part of what was going through my head every time there was a suggestion that delay was about thwarting this. The majority of the members wanted to get to yes. And so in that sense, yes, putting aside my own view, and I think a majority of DC residents would like to see the commanders located in the district and having a football stadium at the football stadium site. It's been a football stadium site for, what, since early 1960s. Okay, so working within that, how do we make the deal better? And I think, Jenny, you've heard me say over and over and over again, my goal has been to make the deal better. And I don't know if you missed this, but I think $949 million, to use that figure, is making it better.
And that's over 30 years.
That's over 30 years. Marquez behind you.
Chairman, I know you're standing here.
Hold on a second. Yes.
Yes, I was just saying, I know you're surrounded by a few council members here that are supportive of these changes, but I would say have all been supportive of the deal since the beginning. I'm just wondering your sense on your meeting earlier this morning, if you feel like these changes are enough to get the other council members that have been on the fence or flat out no on board with this.
I'm confident that we will have the votes necessary next week. You know, just to put it out there, it's very difficult to have a negotiation on something like this. There's a lot of interest in it. A lot of you have been bugging me in a nice way, but bugging me. Well, maybe not in a nice way, but anyway, a lot of you have been bugging me because there's a lot of interest in this. And the only way to be able to negotiate and not negotiate in public is that everyone doesn't know everything in the moment, in real time. And so there was a lot of discussion among members about, can you explain this? And can you explain that? And, oh, how about this? Why not, why didn't you do such and such? And so, you know, members understandably want to understand. And today is the first day that all of them as a group, I hate to put it that way, that all of us as a group have had access to all of the information.
And so every single council member was at the meeting earlier today?
No, there were. Yeah, I'm not going to say that. I think there were 8 members there.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Round 2. Martin kind of touched on this a little bit, but I don't know if we fully fleshed this out. Some of us covered the Nationals ballpark approval. Council member Phil Mendelson and Chairman Phil Mendelson might not recognize each other this morning because you've had an evolution on this kind of stuff. But you've got some pressures that exist in 2025 that did not exist in 2004. I know you don't want to talk about the negotiations, but could you tell us these outside issues, the statements from the president at the White House, this letter from Chairman Comer, did this play no role in accelerating this process?
Well, first of all, I'm intrigued that you're admitting that you're older than I am. And second of all, you should remember then that when I became chair and moved from the seat on the, as you look at the dais on the far left to the center, I said to folks that I was going to have to be more in the center of things, just to answer that question. I think that everyone has been perplexed by the president's comments. And in that sense, they certainly have not been helpful. I don't know where they go. And I have actually characterized them as a distraction in the many senses of that word. I think the letter from Congressman or Chairman Comer, I did reach out to his office after I got the letter. I think you may have actually gotten it before I did. And Although it's kind of interesting that his staff did not get back to me, neither he nor his staff, but I expected it would be his staff. Because I certainly want the House Oversight Committee to understand what's going on and to be comfortable with what's going on. I would say the biggest factor with regard to time was the team said, look, we're willing to make this deal sweeter for the district if you can get to a vote this month. Yes.
Mr. Chairman, Amy Cho from NBC4. If you could speak to specifically how much you think the ticket tax revenue will be, and then also regarding the Sportsplex. Yesterday, Mayor Bowser was very critical, saying the council has taken away some of the funding for that, a project she's very passionate about. The council, I know, had expressed concerns about the high price tag of the project. Is that something you guys would reevaluate in the future?
All right, so on the stadium, the ticket tax, I'm looking at the wrong sheet, but I think it's about $445 million over 30 years. I'm looking at our budget director. Yeah. No, not net present. I didn't say net present on purpose. It's about $445 million from the ticket tax over 30 years.
And the other part of the question about the sports.
I think I'm right on that, because I am looking at the wrong sheet. With regard to, what was the other question?
Sportsplex.
Yeah, the Sportsplex.
$89 million.
So the mayor had proposed in the budget $89 million, I think this fiscal year for the Sportsplex. Well, the Sportsplex isn't going to get built this year. It's not going to get built in 2026. So we rescheduled it for, I believe, FY27 and FY28. Instead of it being all in 1 year, which also is typically not the way these projects are built, that it would be spread over 2 years. It is true that the Facilities Committee of the Council had reduced it from, I believe, 89 to 77. I don't consider that very consequential for two reasons. One is that we don't have the plan, so we don't know what it's actually going to cost. And second, because if the scheduling of this is in 27 and 28, and even that I think is probably sooner than what will actually happen, there's time to ensure there's adequate funding for it. So to say that the council delayed it, I think would not be accurate, because there's no way it was going to get built this year. And to say that the council cut it, I think as a practical matter, no. We'll find out what the actual cost is when they start to do the design work.
One more. If I could ask one more. What do you say to critics who feel that the city should be charging the team rent?
It was something we talked about. Do you mean rent on the stadium or rent on the rest? So there is rent, but it begins in like year 2028 for the mixed-use parcels. A lot of this has to do with the economics that are behind the requirement for affordable housing. You know, affordable housing is below market, and typically affordable housing costs more to construct and operate than the rents will bring in because they're below market rents. And so it has to be subsidized. And in this case, the way it's subsidized is through the land value. And that's typical. Alex.
So a lot of the money that was originally meant to pay for the stadium improvements down the line, you're now redirecting into transportation improvements, these other sources. I take it that the team is happy with this arrangement. Is money still, set aside for stadium improvements moving forward? They're not going to be saying, hey, we need money from you to improve the stadium.
As I indicated before, the ticket tax revenue will all go into a stadium maintenance fund. And this is what the team agreed to.
I also wanted to ask about the tax abatement financial analysis. I think there's a council rule that says if the TAFA finds this isn't necessary, you need a 2/3 vote to move ahead with the project anyway. Have you considered this and think you can figure that out?
If that's what we need, then that's what we need. As I said, I think the votes will be there.
And are you expecting any amendments on Monday or on Friday? I'm getting my days mixed up from anyone else, and would that be a problem with the team?
I hate that kind of question. I have no idea. Today's Thursday, next Friday is 8 days from now. Help me, 8 days from now. So.
Thanks.
We are, as I said before, we have to take the bill that was introduced. So the bill that I introduced was identical to the subtitle the mayor had submitted. And there have to be substantial and substantive changes made to that. And that drafting process, I don't believe that drafting process has begun. There was a, yes, sir. I'll be back there.
So a couple of questions. First one, you want to be heard?
I can talk pretty loud. All right. The team bringing some offices. Talk a bit about the footprint they're going to have when it comes to offices, because obviously they have the big operation in Ashburn, but you said there'll be sales offices, some senior offices. Can you give us any more about the negotiation of what they'll bring here?
I can't. We talked to them about, they're relocating their office to the district, and they've agreed for the senior leadership in the sales office. I don't know what that means in terms of square footage.
So no promises on what they're going to actually bring here and how much space.
Well, senior leadership and sales. That, I think it's probably more than that. To be honest with you, I'm not familiar with their offices, so I don't know how expansive they are. I think right now they're out in Landover, and I've never actually been out there. But my impression is whatever's out there is what's going to come into the district.
All right, and also, why do you think the mayor's proposal fell short of what you were able to negotiate? Do you have any comments on what may have led to that?
Well, I could give you a couple answers, but I think the answer I'll give you is that time was on our side in terms of the team willing to make the deal more attractive. And as I said at the outset, a lot of the reaction that we got from residents, at least that I heard, and I think my colleagues would agree, was that the deal could be better for the district. And I mean, I heard from many people, I support the team, I want the team in the district, but I think that it could be a better deal. And so I think the commanders heard that, and I think all those factors into it. Martin.
All right, first one is just fast on the process part. August 1st, is that just the committee of the whole vote, or are you also going to do a legislative session?
Legislative session.
Okay,
Committee
so
of
it's
the
a
whole
full
and
package.
legislative. And actually, there'll be 2 committee markups.
Right, because it's all this happening on a Friday.
I think so.
You guys are packing it in next week with a budget vote hearing.
And we're on recess, too.
And you're on
Don't
recess.
let anybody tell you, Martin, that when the council's on recess, that we're just vacationing on the beach.
Back to
we're
kind
hard
of
at
following
work.
up a little bit on what Alex was asking about the tax abatement stuff. I mean, the biggest chunk of the tax abatement is the exemption on real property taxes, which you have not changed, right?
Correct, we've not changed that.
So, I mean, talk to residents, and one of the big concerns is the fact that the team is not just getting land for a stadium to build on, where they can build a stadium, but also land where they can build housing and retail. That's going to be float to developers. I mean, there's development rights. I mean, that's worth something. But you're also, so the city is giving them free land, and on top of that, exempting it from property taxes for 30 years. How's
Correct.
that fair to taxpayers?
It is what's subsidizing the affordable housing.
And have you guys broken out the numbers to say that matches? That.
I have, the honest answer is I've not looked at a pro forma on that.
Thank you.
We're kind of running out of questions, which is a beautiful thing. Ben?
Does the terms here have any bearing on the money set aside in the budget for the stadium?
The changes do not have any bearing on, other than the restructuring of the financing, but that's on our side of the equation. We stuck with the basic framework of $500 million subsidy and the $376 million for the garages, for the parking. We stuck with that.
Thank you.
Jenny?
A question about the tax revenues. So it seems like there are 3 tax revenue buckets that you're saying will go to the city's general fund: the parking taxes, the taxes on merchandise and the taxes on food and beverages. I know that the initial terms with the mayor had tax revenues going to a combination of the commanders and the stadium reinvestment fund. Can you just outline for those three buckets where those taxes were going to go before instead of to the general fund? Were some of them to stadium reinvestment and
Well,
some of them?
what was submitted to us, what was announced in the spring was that there would be no parking tax and that all the other taxes would go to this RFK reinvestment fund. And the RFK reinvestment fund, which would not be part of the government, would not be part of Events DC, that this reinvestment fund would basically be in control or controlled by the commanders and could be used for capital maintenance. That's what the proposal was. The change here is that those revenues, other than the ticket taxes, all those revenues are now available to the general fund.
Okay. Does that lessen the amount that the stadium reinvestment fund will have overall?
Yeah.
Okay,
And I'm not even sure it's going to be called the reinvestment fund. I think it's just going to be called the maintenance fund.
So is there a chance that the commanders could just come to the city down the line and be like, hey, we need funding for renovations?
The short answer is no.
Why
The
not?
long answer is that, as you know, whatever people agree to today, you never know when somebody's going to say, I need a handout tomorrow, but we don't expect that.
Okay. And this,
This is an opportunity to repeat, the commanders really have been good partners in all of this.
and the second vote scheduled for September 17th.
17th, yes.
Is that set in stone, or is there a chance you vote earlier?
I'll say there's no chance we'll vote later. No, it's September 17th.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Obviously, you and the mayor are having separate press conferences today. How would you characterize your working relationship with her right now, particularly in regards to this deal, given the fact that you aren't having a press conference together to announce this deal together?
Interesting question. It's not a joint press conference today because the legislation is with the council and the negotiations have been between the council and the commanders. When we're done, it goes back to the mayor, and the mayor negotiates the development financing agreement, the DFA, and the leases. So that's how I would characterize that. I'm aware that the mayor has a press conference soon, but I'm not sure what the topic is. So I guess I would leave it there. I think the mayor should be pleased with this because this is, I will repeat, using the commander's figure for parking revenues, this is a $950 million to the good change in the deal. And it gets us to a yes vote, and it gets us on the way toward getting the stadium built. Last question, Martin.
What about, not jumping way ahead of ourselves here, but when it actually gets to construction, is there going to be a project labor agreement? Is there going to be a guarantee that union jobs will be used? Because I know that's been raised by a number of council members that they want those assurances that this will be a PLA and union jobs.
The stadium will have a PLA. There are a number of requirements, and don't ask me what they are, but there are a number of requirements for the stadium, and it includes a PLA. On the mixed use, that was discussed between us and the commanders. I think there will be something in that direction, but it's not part of this agreement. I think that's going to conclude this. Thank you all very much.